Thank you very much for joining Leader Unplugged. Today we have a very special guest. We're excited to have you, Rob, with us, VP of Engineering and a storied career that we're very excited about diving into. Rob, you and I have been friends for quite a long time now, professional colleagues in one stint, as well as just personal friends. I consider you my mentor. So I have a lot of questions to ask you along the lines of 45 minutes. It might not even take us there. But again, I appreciate all of the support and the insights that you've given me along the way. I hope that we can share those with the community today.
Well, I think a man like you needs a mentor, but here I am. I appreciate you.
Awesome, Rob. Well, let's kick it off, Rob. Just walk us through, for someone that hasn't met you before, tell us about your story, what's your background, and where have you led to, what decisions have led to your successes up to today?
It's a long story, but started out years ago reading Compute magazine, which was a magazine that had basic programs in it. And I would read a book, a children's book, on this kid spy who had saved the world by writing computer programs. And back then, there was no internet. Everything was in a book. So I would dutifully type in this basic code to run the program to try to help this hero save the world. Around that time, the movie War Games came out. And if you ask anybody who was around in the 80s, it was a formative movie. It starred a teenage rebel who was a computer programmer who had to save the world from nuclear destruction. And at the end of the movie, he got the girl. I think it was a young Kelly LeBrock. The boy might have been Matthew Broderick, something like that. And from that moment on, there were a lot of us around that time said, this is it, this is us. You know, back then there wasn't a computer on every desk. I certainly didn't have my own. We would go to the school that had a computer lab. My first machines that I worked on were the Commodore 64, the Apple II, the Apple IIe. Eventually, the school loaned me an Atari 800 XL. These were all 8-bit computers, the 6502 processor. And on and on. I managed to get an internship with Dow Chemical at the age of 16, a summer job, writing software. In my senior year of high school, something interesting happened. Back then, computers didn't do much, but I saw an ad in the paper for a DBase programmer. Now, DBase, for those of you who were around back then, became DBase 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this was the original DBase, which led later on to Microsoft Access. And I answered the ad in the paper. I was still in school. I did not know what it meant to have a job. We had no car. We took the bus and walked everywhere. There was no way for me to take this job, but I called them anyway. And I said, I hear you're looking for a programmer. So yes, I am. Did you know DBase? I said, well, yes, I do. I sure do. And the man asked, well, how much do you want to get paid? Back then, minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. And I was a full chest of air, said $5 an hour. That's what I want. The man on the phone said, great, you're hired. And I didn't know what to do next. There was no way for me to get there. I did call a few days later, and the guy said, hey, you're hired. You know, where are you? But I was still in high school. There was nothing I could do. Eventually, I left my hometown, went to college. By the time I was in college, I was already a professional software developer. I did not want to major in computer science because the people teaching computer science were PhDs and postdocs stuck with this job having to teach kids just so they can do their PhD work. They were not professional engineers. They were just stuck there having to teach us freshmen. And when I saw the coursework, I knew more than no. So I decided to go into electrical engineering. Around that time, I did take side jobs as a computer programmer. And after a while, I got tired of eating hot dogs and ramen, boiling the hot dogs in the water, and then cooking the ramen in the hot dog water. There you go, hot dog flavor ramen. That's my broke person recipe of the day. If you want to know how to live well and be broke, I'm your guy. I started learning C at an early age, and then C++ came along. There was no internet. The way to learn anything was a book. And at Georgia Tech, they had one of the few nodes of the internet. Usenet wasn't a thing yet, so you had to read a book. So I picked up this C++ book from the bookstore. I don't know how I got the money, but I did it. And I looked in it. It was a completely different language than C, I felt. And I took the book, discussed it, and just threw it on the couch and suffered for a few more months. One day, I was walking through this living room, this tiny living room, and I think it was 3 or 4 months later, I looked at that book, and it was like the book was calling me. It was like I was drawn to it. I walked over, opened the book, and all of a sudden, object-oriented development all of a sudden made sense. Everything made sense. In schools, they were not teaching. Back then, it was object-oriented development. It was procedural languages like Pascal and Fortran. The nuclear engineers will learn Fortran. The computer science people will learn Pascal. I said, nobody uses these languages anymore. I don't care to learn them. C was really taught. And in some places, they taught Lisp. They taught out of the book, The Little Schemer, which obviously is a functional language. And that's when it started. At the age of 19, I made up a resume. I said I was a C++ Windows developer who knew Microsoft C++. I was programming in an IDE called Borland C++, and this is a big lesson for everybody. No matter what, you still have to talk your way into a job. You still have to prove something to get in the door. And that's what I did. I had the most elaborate resume you had ever seen and managed to get through the door, and that's where the career started. I was happy being an engineer for a long time until, name drop, here we go, I went to work for Office Depot in Boca Raton, and I had a manager there who was a lady who previously worked in loss prevention. That's what it meant. Somehow, this lady apparently took my advice and talked her way into a manager of software engineers at Office Depot. She was the worst manager I ever had in my life. Up until then, I thought that management was this ivory tower heralded Jedi council of people who were just so much more enlightened than everyone else and were bestowed on this title of manager that they can then pass their wisdom off to other people. The beauty of this job was this lady totally shattered my view on management, realizing that they'll let anybody through the door, even if they had no engineering background whatsoever. So it was a blessing in disguise that this lady was so terrible that I said, I have to do something. Now, some people go into leadership because they want to hear you say, yes, sir, no, ma'am. They want people to laugh at their jokes. They want to tell people what to do. But I honestly felt, and I think this is important, I felt a bit of a higher calling. Leadership, you're not responsible for yourself. You're responsible for other people. And I say, here is this terrible manager who's responsible for this large team of engineers, and we're abusing us through her ignorance. I said, the higher up I go the chain, the more good I can do. I can get projects out the door. I know the art and science of software development. So I'm going to switch over into management. I'll be a hands-on manager. One thing leads to another. I started working for a company that had one engineer, hired me as an engineer, and the engineer quit. So there I am by myself, and zing, you're a manager now. A manager of 0. That's where you start. We hired 2 more people. They quit. I'm back to 0. I'm still coding and managing at the same time. Then I said, look, what are we doing? Why are we trying to hire technical talent in Miami? Miami is not exactly a center of tech. They try to be every year. Every year you'll hear how Miami is becoming the new Silicon Valley. It hasn't happened yet for a few reasons that I think are tangential to this conversation. But I said, look, we can get people online. We can get people all over the world. We can use Upwork and Freelancer and various sites, and let me hire people globally to help us out. This was before remote work was cool, and the talent crunch in Miami forced me to go global about 15 years before it was a thing to manage global teams. So I started managing global teams over Skype. There was no Slack. There was barely Jira. All the tools that we know and love now, there really wasn't distributed source control. Git had just come around. a competitor to Git. There was no GitHub. So I was managing global teams all over the world. Now, back then, everyone wanted to be in India or China. They said these engineers are cheap. But I felt that Eastern European engineers were excellent and we could afford them and hire them. My intro to global software engineers were Russians, Ukrainians, and a bunch of other Eastern Europeans. That's where this all started. So all of the best practices that you hear now about running global teams was something that came from a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I never got my hands out of tech. A good manager has to first achieve mastery at the task he is managing. So I felt like I had taken engineering as far as it could go. And the manager, director, the VP roles soon came after that, but always hands-on. I never got out of the fray. I still code to this day. I still review pull requests to this day. And despite places like World Fuel, who said, I'm going to make a real manager out of you. You're not going to code anymore. You're not going to touch a code anymore. You're just going to lead a team. And what that does is produce managers who are out of touch and cannot verify. They can only trust. When I worked for Chick-fil-A, no matter what the engineers said, they had to believe it because they knew no better. Yes, this will take 3 months. The only thing you do is throw up your hands and say, okay, 3 months. But I was in the fray, in the code. Now that's cool. Now that we hear about Elon Musk sleeping on the factory floor, now all of a sudden it's cool again to get your hands dirty in the tech. But I like to say I was a forerunner to Elon Musk. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that is the story. And I just want to stress that any role you do has to be a calling. It has to be a higher calling. Taking a job is fine. Taking a job for the money is fine. But if you want to move past being an individual contributor, make sure you have that pull. Make sure you're being drawn to that area. If someone happens to promote you in a role, do the best you can in that role. You have to play the game. But try to find the good in that role and use your influence for good, and that's try to see how much you can extract out of the company, et cetera.
It's a fascinating story, Rob. Thank you for sharing. Rob, a couple themes there that we'll definitely touch on. One's calling me out in particular. From my understanding, you said that you were self-taught in early programming before it became hot. So you're completely autodidactic learning. What tips could you give to someone who is trying to learn a new skill or a new trade that it didn't come from that traditional realm? And also, how do you balance the imposter syndrome that one will likely face at any role, but probably one that you autodidactically learned a new skill?
So everyone back then was self-taught. There were no computer classes. And like I said, the classes were based on things that no one did in the real world. They taught Pascal, they taught Fortran. If you went to a brilliant university, they may have taught you C. My first job leaving the university was Visual Basic. You have to be self-taught. And back then, it was all books and magazines. There was nothing online. If something was new, you had to wait till next month where it was published in a magazine and someone got around to writing a book on it. There were no conferences like now. You can learn anything online for free. You can get on YouTube right now, which I did, and learn economics from a Nobel Prize winner in economics. You can also watch a video of a lady getting her butt waxed on YouTube. So there's so much out there. There's so much information out there that you really have to focus and narrow down what you want. If I get online now and say I want to learn something, I'm going to get thousands and thousands of videos. So if you do want to learn a new skill, my advice is immersion. And also my advice may be different from what you want to hear. Is because everything is free, it's very tempting to watch a video on it. It's very tempting to ask ChatGPT or Grok or such to teach you something. And that's all good if it works for you. But I always say you should start with the books. When someone publishes a book, you are getting a year, 2 years, or more of their life condensed down to this book that's succinct enough to fit in the palm of your hand. And you can read that and get a lot of wisdom out of a book versus surfing videos. If you have an opportunity to take a class, sure. But whatever you do, you have to immerse yourself with a high signal to noise ratio, meaning it has to be a lot of meat in this material and not as much anything else. So I always say start with the books. If I want to learn something, I buy 5, 6, even 10 books on something. If you look at my backpack right now, because of the rise of AI and LLMs, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books here on linear algebra. Yes, you can take a class online. Yes, you can learn it. But to condense all that learning in a book, I think is something special. You get very concentrated material. And you don't have to go around searching which MOOC is the best, which video is the best, different learning styles, and on and on. I also feel that by buying a book, you are investing yourself in it. It forces you to do it. I paid a price. I don't want to lose my money. It costs me something. And that's one thing about free learning. Sometimes when things are free, people don't appreciate it. If you just walk around giving things for free, I can tell you by personal experience, they don't appreciate it as much. In fact, some people, you could do something for and give them something for free, and they'll turn around and hate you worse. Has it ever happened to you where you did a good for someone and they hated you? And unfortunately, that's human nature. That's how it is. So when learning something new, it has to cost you. And that forces you into a particular zone where you have to learn this material. I always say, with every paycheck, buy a book. It has to cost you. Pay for a class, pay for something. And that's the kind of advice that a lot of people don't listen to because they want it all for free. Yes, you can learn it for free. And eventually, you should learn it for free. There's a lot of free info out there. But if you really want to learn it and learning fast, you have to immerse yourself, and it has to cost you. Even in the internet age, there is still timely bits of wisdom out there that you will not get for free, and it will cost you.
Very true. Rob, in your synopsis of your career, you mentioned about deciding to get into the management route for teaching others and kind of righting the wrong, so to speak, that you had experienced. I think many of us can pull from our own experiences of that one manager that kind of triggered that responsibility chip inside of all of us.
Right. Sherry, who you are, Sherry. If you're watching this, I love you.
So I'm just curious, you're bringing a wealth of experience. How has management changed from where it once was, or what was that peak, and what would you describe it today? And the reason for that question is also so that our community can gain a better understanding of being aware of what does good management look like, and possibly backfilling that with good mentorship or perhaps those more academic resources that you were just describing.
Sure. So it has changed. It's gone from in-person to online. It used to be you're just surrounded by the people who work for you. If they're working, you can see it. If they're not working, you can see it. You can connect the output to the number of hours they're sitting in front of a computer. I had one manager years ago, another awful manager, good guy, but awful manager, who, when he walked by the office, if you weren't furiously typing on your computer, then you're somehow a lazy slob. And I grew up like this. I grew up with hard people just teaching me what not to do. And the easiest thing I ever did was just do the opposite of what everybody did to me. And zing, there's management. So to answer your question, and I'm going to answer two of your questions at the same time, good management is a servant. A manager is a servant leader. And if you check out the book by Robert Greenleaf and others, there's a whole movement out there called the servant leader. Now, I learned this years ago, before it was cool. And now they teach it in the school at Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A managers and owners are taught the servant leader mindset. And it's become a really part of management training. But a leader, a manager, is a servant. And what that means is you take that org chart and you turn it upside down, and you are not at the front, you are not at the top barking orders and just throwing down commandments written in stone. What you're doing is you're at the bottom holding your team up and making sure they have everything they need to do their job. You are leading them by serving them. What do you need? What blockers need to be cleared? What's happening here? What's going on with this pull request? And on and on. You are serving them. Do you need anything from me? Can I do anything for you? The second thing is observability. Management has changed in that way because even though I can't see you face to face, if you have an engineering background, you can see the activity the developer is doing, or product owner is doing, or QA or DevOps. I can see your output. I can see your activity. I know what things are supposed to cost. I know how long things are supposed to take. And so by observing that, I can see, here's a little secret. You want your observability. I'm going to pull a page from quantum physics. We have all these quantum particles spinning around, and the nature of that particle changes as soon as you observe it. So if you shine a photon at a quantum particle, it takes a certain state, and I can observe it. And you want your observability to be as or unevasive as possible. Unfortunately, at Chewy, the managers at Chewy, every week have to write at least a one-page report about what's happening in their team. Is that observability? No, it's not. If you're the director, VP, CTO, how come you don't know what's happening in your organization? How come I have to write a short story on what's going on just for you to know? But you can build in controls, dashboards, and other metrics, logs, pieces of observability so that I don't need anything. I don't need any touch points. I have a bot asking you what's going on today. Simple 3 questions. I can already see from your work stream what's going on. I can see what's happening in GitHub, in Jira, and Figma, a variety of other tools. So I want my observability to be as touchless as possible. I should not have to ask anybody what's going on. The only thing I can ask is, as a servant leader, how can I make you happy today? What can I do for you? And that's a lesson that I took from a manager at Chewy. I always ask, how can I make you happy today? How can I help you? What can I do for you today? How can I serve you today? And a lot of people don't like to do that because it sounds perhaps unmasculine. It sounds like you're some sort of indentured servant, but you are a servant. How can I serve you today? I see this task took the entire week. What can I do for you? And what it does is, there's a flip side of this. What it does is, if you do everything you can for your team, if you've provided all the resources that you can, unfortunately in management, firings happen, but you don't feel guilty about it because I did everything for you. I gave you my all. I took my heart out and put it on the table for you. And if this environment can allow you to succeed, then you need to find that happy place where you can. So I don't feel guilty about canceling contracts, employee termination, because I did it all for you. You cannot say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and on and on. I gave you everything. Thankfully, because of my servant leader mindset, all my teams have very, very low turnover. Some of them almost 0%. And there were times when I had to go or something was being shut down. I can say that a lot of my team members were almost in tears. We had to leave a meeting early because of just the love that they had for the service that I gave them. And that's what it's all about. I want to leave you better than when I found you. And I would certainly do that. I always say to my team, I am your servant leader, and I'm here to serve. Whatever you need, I'll get you. What do you need me to do for you? And just to cap it all off, I say something a little bit half funny. I say, if you want to meet Mrs. Right, I will help you meet Miss Right. You want to meet Mr. Right, I will help you meet Mr. Right. Whatever you need, I will do it for you. And just recently, a young man said, you know what? I do want to meet Miss Right. I said, brother, I got you. We will make this happen.
That's awesome, Rob. I can attest to this being a friend of yours now, almost going on a decade. I think that spirit also goes into your personal life. Like, you're just always in the mix, trying to drive a solution or help on blocks. I've even been testament to that servant leadership mindset and philosophy that you carry.
Amen. Thank you. That's good to hear.
So, Rob, you were talking about how can you serve and also people You mentioned a company there of like asking you for a write-up and such. And I know that many of those people that are asking you about more resources or give me more, or we'll take you very happily on that, what can I serve for you today approach, probably to an exploitative extent. So what's your take on
Not at
engineering
all.
and product and
Let me
the balance therein?
No, not at all. It is not exploitative at all. I always say this: when I walk in a room and meet my team, Santa Claus is coming to town. I'll make sure I try to do everything I can to get you what you need. But when Santa Claus comes to town, he wants his milk and cookies. I'll get you that super duper pro license. I'll get you this. I'll get you that. But I guarantee you in 30 days, I want to see an impact. I'm doing all this for you. It's only fair that you match my energy. It's only fair that you match it. It's not exploitative. You cannot exploit love. No matter what you give to anyone, it always comes back to you 100-fold. You cannot exploit love. I will do this for you. I'll see you in a week. Let me see if this helped. If you can't get it done with everything I've done for you, I tried. So it's not exploitative at all. What you do have to be careful about is making decisions that you can't roll back, as Jeff Bezos said. But I'll get you what you want. I'll get you that license. I'll get you this. I'll get you that double monitor. I'll get you that fancy chair. What do you need? I'll get you that flex schedule. You know, you want to take off the day, but I'm keeping my word to you that Santa Claus is coming to town, and you need to keep your word to me. I've had engineers say, I got to go home early. I'll work on this over the weekend. Monday morning, let me see. You told me you were working this weekend. Oh, well, yeah, I still had to. No, sir, because you would demand I keep my word. I'm now demanding you keep your word. You told me you will work this weekend. You know the game. You know what's about to happen next. Everything that's about to happen next is your fault. I did this for you. I took the schedule on myself. I made these promises to the customers. You told me you can do it. If you can't do it, then you get a lump of coal. All right. Now, what was your question?
I appreciate that reframe, Rob. So help us understand from your vantage point. Again, it's a bunch of product people talking to product folks here. So give us your perspective of what you feel is a high performing product team. Obviously, the triad with engineering, with design and product is how modern product is developed and shipped. What has been from your experience and also from your guidance on the best makeup or dynamic therein in that triad, or otherwise the extended stakeholder groups?
So to all the product people watching, you must be an excellent writer. If you're not a good writer, then you'll only go so far in product. Writing has to be your superpower. You must be able to take customer expectations, customer demands, customer requests, and maybe that feel of where the market is going, maybe that instinct that you feel the market is going, put all that together and writing it down. You have to be able to digest the entire world, and you have to make that requirement, that epic, that feature, wherever you're putting it, you have to write it. It has to be clear, and it has to speak to everyone. It has to speak to the executive team. It has to speak to your higher ups, and a version of it has to speak to your engineering team. If you are not a good writer, pause this video, get 5 books on writing, make yourself a good writer. Bird by bird, on writing well, and on and on. You have to be a good writer. If you hate writing, if you feel that you are squeezing those words out and they're not flowing like they should, well, you keep squeezing them out until they flow. You have to be a good writer, full stop. If not, then you're just going to be that product owner, that product manager that everybody hates. This just happened to me at a particular cruise line that was named nameless. This lady just transcribed what a customer wanted, word for word, put it in a ticket. It was confusing. It did not make sense. I asked her, what in the world is this? She said, I don't know either. Go reach out to the customer yourself. Now, what part of management is that? Is that a product manager? No. You are a poor excuse for AI transcription. I could have done that myself. A bot could have done that. You are not 10xing the team with your product experience. That's step one, be a good writer. Now, with that clear requirements, we can now get into something else. That clear acceptance criteria. Taking that piece that you've written, how do I know it's done? Do you have a definition already? How do I know this requirement is ready to go? Is it still baking? It stays in the backlog. Is it clear to everyone? Have you talked with the tech lead? Have you talked to the exec team? Is this ready to go? Yes, it is. Then I need to know, how do I know this is finished or not? This is where it cascades down through the organization. That acceptance criteria, that clear wording that tells me when this is done, allows my engineering team to take this feature, break it up into tasks, user stories, that also have their own acceptance criteria, which roll up to your acceptance criteria and that requirement. This also cascades down in the QA. QA has a clear thing to work from. This is tested by this, and it has to meet this. This keeps QA from making things up. If you don't do this, QA is going to go wild. Oh, while I was here, I saw this and this and this and this and this. Maybe you did. File those as bugs. File them. We're going to put that on the backlog. But we need to be focused. Does this code pass this acceptance criteria? Yes or no? If you see anything else, that's exploratory, and we will put that somewhere for the team to work on. That cascades down to production. When it finally goes into production, someone likes or doesn't like it. How do I know? I get customer feedback, I get user feedback, I get executive feedback, I get internal feedback. That points all the way back to product. Product points to engineering, engineering points to QA, and QA passes it to production. Who is responsible for what goes into production? Engineering? Not for this. QA? Not for this. Product. Does this acceptance criteria match what happens in production? Does it match? Yes. This is all I wrote. This is my feature. This is an acceptance criteria. And this is what you all signed off on. Executive team, this is what you signed off on. If you don't have that, everyone yells at engineering, pisses off engineering, and now engineering is pissed at product. That's when you have that enmity, that infighting between product and engineering. But with that clear acceptance criteria from product that matches the final output and production, I can take this production deployment, point it all the way back to product, and say, this is what you asked for. If it doesn't work like this, that's on product. Now with this, I can know if I have a good product owner or not, a good product manager or not, because what I'm seeing in production may be great or not great. If it's great, product did its job. If not, product did not do their job. People find it difficult to rate product. All this person's doing is writing up tickets. How can we tell who's good or not? Well, does it work in production? Is what production wanted? Did the customers really ask for this? Product will say, oh yeah, sure. Somebody can go upstream and say, okay, show me the customer requirement. Show me some rant on Discord, some posting on Twitter, some user feedback, some A/B testing. Let me see the metrics. Why did we push this to production? Where did you get this from? Product, you should be able to say, we A/B tested it. We did customer feedback. We deployed Hotjar and we saw this. Product is becoming more and more aligned with metrics every single day. is no longer, I guess the customer wants this. I think it wants that. No. Increasingly so, you're going to have to back this up with something. Show me that link to Discord where a customer wanted this. Show me this forum posting where you have this big thread about this customer feature and people voted thumbs up and down. Show me the metrics from A/B testing, which made you want to go this direction. Show me conversion. Give me those conversion metrics. Give me those customer feedback metrics. Metrics. You can measure everything, and increasingly so, we are measuring everything product does. You have to be prepared for that.
Definitely want to echo one particular part there of acting through this data feed, right? Whether it's Discord or any other listening channel, right? Making sure that we're anchoring our decisions or framing our decisions or having some impetus from some data point out of the market. Maybe if it's even competitive, right? It's not necessarily that there's a customer asking for a feature, but it could be a strategic response. But there has to be some level of impetus that's a response from the market or a blue ocean strategy. There has to be some business case behind that blue ocean strategy. You don't want to be in the blue ocean and you're swimming alone without customers. That would be a terrible ocean.
Even that competitive feedback you get, there still need to be metrics. You still need to document that somehow. Competitor A has this and we don't. Are we losing sales? Let me see those sales metrics. And when we do our offboarding interviews with our customers, what are they saying? Oh yeah, competitor A has this and you don't. Fine, that's a metrics. But you just can't guess. You can't say, okay, these people have dark mode. We need dark mode too. These people have AI plugins. We need AI plugins too. Somebody has to say something. You have to get it from somewhere. Rarely these days are you going to be able to go by feeling. Well, I see these guys doing this and these guys doing that. And I got to say, AWS is great at this. They can take the most obvious thing and not do it until somebody on a forum says, I want this. Now, you would really have to be a special product owner for me to entrust your instincts. That Steve Jobs level where he famously said, I don't care what the customer wants. I know what they want. I will give them what they want. They don't know what they want yet. You are now Steve Jobs, no matter how many black turtlenecks you buy. It will take a lot for me to trust you with instinct. Starting out, I want to see some data. If you want to have an instinct, type it up, put it in a Google Doc, put it somewhere, and let's look at it. And let's see if your instincts come to pass. If that keeps happening, then I will trust you with your instincts. Until then, shut up and give me those metrics.
A lot of marketing budget also helps with the turtleneck and instinct strategy as well.
That's data-driven too now. Marketing is just not, I want a big picture on a billboard. That's data-driven too. And my dear friend, Devin Dillon, who worked for Disney, did the marketing for Black Panther and other movies. It's all data. A billboard is data. A magazine ad is data. You cannot say, I think I can just put a picture of a hot girl holding our product and call it good. It's all data now. It's Mad Men just doesn't exist anymore. It's all data. And Devin, if you're watching, I love you.
I'm reminded of a Mark Twain quote, right? There's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? So
that's right.
I think it's also important that we have our own guardrail to data that might misinform us as well. So I want to ask you a particular question on that note as well. Like, have crafted my career in product, really leaning in with engineers, not only befriending them and making amazing acquaintances along the way in my career, but it was by introducing engineering earlier into the build process, what used to be a rather faux pas, to include your architect lead engineers into design workshops and into this very creative world. It used to be like, here's the slate of what you got to go build. I always felt that was excluding them and missing the mark from a potential, you mentioned acceptance criteria, but other critical requirements that we needed to abide by that would otherwise not have been disclosed until way later down the design flow. But at the same time, I've also gotten dinged on taking too much of the engineer's time in meetings, that they're not coding or they're not supporting the actual code development effort. So wanted to understand, like, what's your perspective on it? How have you seen the most successful product teams incorporating engineering appropriately into earlier flow or earlier funnel ideas while not foregoing the pragmatic development of engineering?
All right, here we go. This is why it's so important for your manager, your director, your VP of engineering to be technical. Because while your product team is ideating, you can go off and have your pie in the sky plan. Eventually, before you waste engineering's time, it's fine to have that director of engineering, that manager of engineering, that lead architect at the very end of that ideation strategies and say, now we have to shape this around the real world. Like Steve Jobs said, product guys make a big mistake. They think the product is going to look like the result. So you have these wild ideas, you have these great ideas, it should do this, it should do that. But that will inevitably change when reality punches it in the mouth. So what happens is, like Steve Jobs said, he said electrons can only do so much. Plastic can only do so much. Glass can only do so much. So this idea is being formed around reality until the output is something that we want. Step one is to understand that your vision in the beginning may not look like the product at the end. It's just a starting point. And when you have that senior engineer come into the room after your V1 of this idea to say, okay, this is not possible like this. This will cost a lot of money, and on. Then the real product starts to take shape. And a lot of times it would end up looking like the very opposite of what you started with. Now, if you don't know any better, a product team will say, oh man, this engineering team sucks. I need to understand my vision. Look at these people. This doesn't even look anything like what I planned. Well, reality hit your product plan. And if you don't like that, maybe your engineering team does suck, but you dance with the girl that brought you. And you're just stuck with that engineering team. There's nothing you can do.
I love the analogies, Rob.
These are my G-rated analogies. Yeah.
So Rob, you mentioned earlier in a couple points there of like, hey, the poor adoption of an AI writer, right, for the product appeal that you had mentioned there. What's your take on more cutting edge, let's call them cutting edge technologies, such as GenAI in the workplace and otherwise blockchain? I know that you've had your stint in the career path of blockchain. Like, help us understand, for those that aren't very well versed in blockchain, how does that apply outside of us buying some coin and hoping that it goes to the moon? Like, what does that mean in a pragmatic way? Give us some use cases and help us understand that. And also your take on GenAI in the workplace.
So for AI, use it all. Use it while we got it. If you feel that it helps you as a product, if you feel that it helps your writing, if you feel that it helps summarize the data, then fine, use it. Those are one of the tools that should be used. I'm not against AI anywhere, any step in the process. As an engineering lead, what I do have are the quality gates so that AI slop can't make it through. I have my tests according to your acceptance criteria so that no matter what you do with AI or anything else, it won't make it through the other side without passing my quality gates. Now, I did that before it was cool because hiring people online, people will say anything. Yeah, I'm a Nobel Prize winner. They'll say anything, especially for projects that I was really going fast on. I gave people a shot. I hired everyone. I can literally take somebody off the street and plug them into any of my engineering teams. That first quality gate will show me how good you are. Now, it may be on an empty project, so you don't touch anything vital, but I have enough work going out where I can just hire anybody, plug them in, and that quality gate will show me what you can do. When hiring global teams, I had a lot of churn doing that. I had people with empty resumes who are brilliant. I had people who are living in literal huts on the other side of the world that I changed their life with the jobs I gave them. One guy in particular I hired, he makes more than the mayor of his town on the other side of the world. And I'm happy about that. I've hired people in countries that aren't known for tech, And they are living it up because of the opportunities I gave them in places that you probably wouldn't want to live there yourself. On the other hand, I hired people with stellar resumes who talked like they were the next coming of John Carmack, and they didn't make it past the first week. I've had many people who didn't make it past the first day. There was a lot of day one churn. If I hire you as a Java developer and your first question is, okay, how do I install Java? Well, I already know how this is going to go. Thank you. Have a nice day. When it comes to GenAI, make sure that quality gate is there, even on the product side. Maybe using AI to summarize your writing. Maybe using AI to bring a lot of information together and create that requirements document. Fine, but it needs to make sense. It needs to be clear. And that acceptance criteria needs to support what you wrote. You just cannot ask ChatGPT something and copy and paste. So that gets you a lump of coal. So about blockchain, I say use it all. Use everything you can. Blockchain is a very, very narrow space, I would say, and you just kind of shoehorn it everywhere. If you need a distributed, immutable log, a proof of work blockchain is perfect for you. If you just need an immutable log, there are many read-only databases. Amazon has one. I think it's called QDB. But if you need to write something that can never be erased and it needs to be distributed, then you use a proof of work blockchain. And that's what proof of work is. It takes a certain amount of energy to write something to the chain, and it's there forever. So if you need that immutable, never-changing log of something, then write it to a public or private proof of work chain. For proof of work and proof of stake, it could be used as currency. It could be used as a store of value. But primarily, what I've used it for is to represent ownership of something. Yes, the NFT craze came and went, but I can still do fractional ownership with blockchain. I can say I own 1/1000th of a sailboat, which is what I did working with the Oracle SailGP team. Larry Ellison famously loved sailing, and there was a team called SailGP, and they wanted to have fractional ownership of this performance racing sailboat. And that was a project I did. You can buy a fraction of the SailGP team. And I really like it for income generating properties that have fractional ownership. We are going to use a smart contract to say who owns what. And when money does come in, it is distributed properly to the whole team. So that's my number one use case currently for that kind of thing. And a lot of people are in this space. You can have a fractional ownership of a car. They're doing fractional ownerships of real estate, fractional ownership of luxury goods. And I like it. That's where I cut my teeth in the blockchain.
It's wonderful. It's like modern timeshare.
It is. You really see how the blockchain and smart contracts keep people from acting maliciously. Because it's a smart contract, there's nothing you can do. It's written in code. You cannot act maliciously when you're a fractional owner. So I like it. There's still some governance around that. But if anyone out there wants to do a project like this, I'm your guy.
So on that note, I appreciate your time, Rob. If someone still has some questions that we didn't get a chance to cover, how do they reach out to you? How do they get a hold of you and
Sure.
connect?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Robert Smith. I can give you my personal email, which is robertsmith@hey.com, HEY.com. And currently, I'm using AI agents to do back office automation. So particularly in scheduling. I'm working on a project where people have to schedule hours for employees. And I'm writing AI agents to do that scheduling using AI and other scheduling algorithms to save that scheduling time. And this is going to be a $20 to $40 million savings. So I'm getting to combine my background in software development, AI, DevOps, the whole package, because it's not just AI. You still have to release the thing. That's what I'm working on now. But if you want to reach out, feel free to reach out. any questions that you may have, hit me up on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to talk to you.
Excellent, Rob. Thanks very much. Well, Robert is part of our Product Leader Academy Mentor Committee as well. And if you'd like to reach out to Rob there as well, and Rob, I'll be pinging you for also maybe posting that really interesting project that you're working on inside of our product sandbox. If you're looking to level up in your product management career, if you're looking to cut your teeth in developing new skills, there's no better place than Product Leader Academy. This is where you learn by doing. We are proof over paper. As a community, we promote projects where you can learn by doing and build your career by actually producing product portfolio artifacts. Do so at Product Leader Academy. Community is free to join, and we have great mentors such as Rob and many others that can guide you along the way. Thank you for participating, Rob, and thank you for joining.
Next time, this needs to be a 3-hour call.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless.